We got to move on, though. There was also some other stuff going on here. Prochazka versus Hill. Danny, what did you think of this result, man? I don't know who you took on stat picks. I didn't glance. I just want to know what you thought of the fight. Is this the way you expected it to go?
100%. There were some fights that I obviously didn't get right, but this one I called to perfection. I did think it was going to be a war. I did think both fighters were going to have their moments, but I didn't see this going a distance. And I saw Jiri Prochazka getting his hand raised. He's just the more dangerous fighter. Like, yes, Jamahal Hill is dangerous as well. He's got power, and he is a little bit more technical and a little bit more defensively sound than Jiri. But all in all, like, not by a whole lot. Like, there's still some pretty big holes in Jamahal Hill's defense. And I think offensively, Jiri is just a lot better, plus just the better athlete as well. He was carrying a little bit extra fat in terms of Hill competing there that night. So, this could go either way, but I felt pretty confident in picking Jiri Prochazka by knockout, and that's exactly what we saw. And it was a great fight. It was my favorite fight on the card, believe it or not, and it delivered. I thought it was the best fight on that night. So, awesome fight. Respect to both these guys, and really interested to see some of the matchups coming out of this one, because I think Khalil Roundtree and Olberg, those guys need to get matched up against these guys. I don't really care too much about the order, who against who, but I want to see some really good striking fights between those four. So, I'm all for it. Plus, we'll get into it later, but I'm so happy that we're not here discussing like, oh, could this guy be next for Alex Pereira? No, we got an answer to that also on that card. True. So, fantastic fight. Loved it.
Yeah, Mike, you were there in person. I was on the edge of my seat at home. You were there in person. Two former champs. They can both put your lights out. There wasn't trash talk, but we clearly had, at least according to the fans, a heel and a baby face. What were your thoughts on this bout?
Yeah, it was good stuff. I think this was the first fight announced for this card, so we've known that this was coming for quite a while here, and I think it delivered. Jamahal Hill, I was wrong about this. I picked him to win this fight, but I had a huge red flag on fight week when, came to media day and confirmed that he started his camp around 260. And you imagine just most of it was spent trying to get down to the weight more so than we're improving your skills and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the parts I hate about weight cutting too. It doesn't allow you to focus on being your best fighter because you're spending so much of the camp losing weight. And, he's had a lot of serious injuries in recent years. So I don't think this is like the best version of Jamahal Hill that we can get, but I think it was one of the better versions of Jiri Prochazka. He spoke so much about how he worked on keeping his hands up and his defense. We saw moments where that did go out the window a little bit, but his head movement was very on point in the night. Like that finishing sequence where he dropped him that final time was lovely. Striking. I mean, look at this guy. He was just on point this night, and he obviously had a lot of motivation, with the woman that was kind of supporting him throughout fight week, and he was showing her support, who's been, battling cancer. So there was just endless motivation for Jiri Prochazka to win this fight and, make a statement to the division. It's real hard, as we know, to get a third fight with a standing champion. We will see if Alex Pereira remains the champion for a few more months here, but if he does, Jiri, I think, is going to have to do a little more work. But I asked Dana White at the post-fight press conference, would you be willing to do a third fight? What would it take? And he seemed to show interest in being like, I don't think the fans would be mad at that one. And then you saw Alex Pereira doing an interview, I believe, with Megan O'Leary that aired on the post-fight show, where he said once he beats Ankalaev, he'd be willing to give Jiri that third fight. So this was a massive moment for Jiri, and he did exactly what he needed to do. So good for him.
Mm-hmm. I like Hill versus Roundtree. You guys feeling that?
Yep. I like it.
I like Jiri versus Roundtree. I was going to note that as well. Like Alberg, is fighting Jan Blachowicz in London, right. So that kind of takes him out of that equation for Danny for now.
I guess the winner of that, maybe.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. But to me, I do think I like the idea of matching up, some of the recent title contenders and people who have lost to Alex Pereira. I'm sure Roundtree badly wants a rematch as well. So to get through Jiri, that would go a long way for him.
All right, we got to keep it moving. We can discuss this all day, honestly, because so many things went down. Goes RDR 2-0, coming over, a champ from one championship, comes over. Quick work of Kevin Holland. What do you do with him next? Or Rainier DeRitter, for those that don't know.
That's interesting. That's up to the UFC and the way they want to handle this guy, right? The first fight, he wasn't too. He didn't really blow people away, right? It wasn't the toughest challenge, and he maybe could have got a stoppage early on, but it didn't really go the way I think he wanted it to. If the UFC wants to embrace him and promote him, we've seen guys come over like, say, Ben Askren, right? At first, I think he came over and they were trying to put over Robbie Lawler a little bit in that matchup. It didn't work out, but then they embraced him. And I think that's what they should probably do with RDR, because he's very charismatic. He's a really good fighter. He has done some great things outside of the UFC. I think it's time to maybe put something behind him and put him in something fun.
Danny, how about Payton Talbott? We were expecting a lot from him, but he just did not look good. And shout out to Raoni Barcelos, who felt disrespected by the odds.
Yeah, as I said on the previous show with Farah, I had a full round trip on that Payton Talbott train, the whole meal plan, everything. Like I was, this guy's ready for the rankings, but I think all that hype and all those expectations really crashed down, and we really got a sort of a reality check with Raoni Barcelos. Raoni Barcelos, by the way, great strategy and all, but if you are a near future title challenger, you are expected to defeat Raoni Barcelos. And it's not like some other guys haven't been able to get through him in recent times. No, a lot of them have. So I think we got a big reality check with Payton Talbott. I still think there's a lot of potential there, star potential and also sporting potential. But I just think it's going to be delayed for some time. I do wonder, because he, even in the sort of striking, the little bit that we saw from striking, it didn't look great. I really do wonder how he's dealing with all the fame. I mean, we've seen him hang out with like Tony Hawk, and Frank Ocean was there. Apparently they're buds, and he was there.
Posted Instagram stories of him making food and stuff.
Yeah. So like, I know he's like, his life has changed a lot in the last year or so. And I do wonder how much that gets to him. Hopefully not, but we definitely can't discard that idea. So again, big reality check, back to the drawing column, keep him away from the rankings for a little bit and see how he evolves in the next year or so. The good thing is that he's just 26 years old. So he's still like 2 years away from his prime. So there's a lot of time for him to develop. But yeah, big reality check. He ain't ready for the rankings just yet. I was wrong.
Mike,
George, if I could just jump in real quick, reality check for a lot of the guys on this card, right? 4 undefeated fighters who came in, all lost their O's on this one. Payton Talbott being one. Yeah, all 4 on this card. Another one being, and I'll just acknowledge the question from Masters of the Universe Classic. He said, what did you think of Clayton Carpenter's performance? He's another one who lost his O against Tagir Ulanbekov. I don't have too many thoughts. That was a decent fight as far as who he could fight next. Pretty much anyone at flyweight, probably also coming off a loss, but just wanted to acknowledge that because Masters of the Universe Classic has given us some good questions in there.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to go to you, Mike, where, all we talk about is Jones and Aspinall when we think of heavyweights, but Jelton Maid and Sergey Spivak, that was interesting, wasn't it? On the ground, one guy would take control, then he'd get swept back and forth until Jailman got the win. What did you think of that fight?
Yeah, it was fine for like a heavyweight fight. You've seen many worse sloppy heavyweight matchups, so I think this is like what you can ask for. There was some entertaining exchanges. You don't usually get that type of grappling, both offensively and defensively at heavyweight. So I think these guys kind of knew the assignment. They followed through on it. And Almeida just the better one at this point. Spivak has had some good moments in the UFC, but I think Almeida is a real force there. And if they do end up making Jones versus Aspinall, please give this man Cyril Gane, because he has called him out enough times at this point and done so following solid wins that it's time to give him that matchup.
Mm-hmm. Guys, this is your chance to tell me another highlight from 311. Let's make it quick. Back to goes. Anything else you want to shine on from the card?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Our original co-host on MMA Junkie Radio, Frank Trigg, seeing him as a ref in some of the bigger fights there on the UFC, and a guy like Chris Lieben, right? These are guys that are contributing still to our sport, making it better. I thought it was really cool to see them in those roles now.
Danny, how about you? Anything you want to shed a light on?
Yeah, Aileen Perez, I thought she had a really, really tough fight against Carol Rosa. I thought that fight was going to determine whether she's like a legit contender or not, because clearly on the social media and just media side of things, she's very good at it and probably the best fighter right now doing it in the women's bantamweight division. So, it was time to kind of see where she's at sporting wise, and she did great. She had a great fight IQ, managed a very, very tough fight, pulled off a solid decision win. No controversy around that. And I think when the rankings update on Tuesday, it's pretty safe to say that she's going to be in the top 10 and probably big fights await for her next. So shouts out to her, 5-fight win streak, unbeaten at 135 pounds. Yeah, she looked great.
I want to shout out Grant Dawson. He's like 11-1-1 in the UFC since coming through the Dana White Contender Series, but it doesn't move up because he doesn't fight a lot of ranked fighters. I think some of them turn him down. Who knows? He came up short against Bobby Green, but he's dusted himself off, keeps coming through. But I think he's getting it now. He's lining up names, giving you, what he wants, and I think that might help him. He said Beneil Dariush at UFC 314 in April. Hopefully he gets it. I like that matchup. Sucks that Dariush did not get to compete, but I heard he did get win and win bonus and show bonus. So good on the UFC for doing that. Remember about a few months back, Chris Weidman had some gripes. Same situation. He didn't get his full pay. But Mike, do you want to say something real quick about the Intuit Dome before we move on?
Yeah, just a very
It
cool
looked pretty
venue
cool.
to be there for the first time. I think everything came off well. I mean, the in-house graphics were super dope, and then you go look through the photos, screenshots from the broadcast, like those chairs and the stuff that lit up in the background. I think added just a nice little element. When I first got in there and saw how bright it was, I was like wondering if it was going to impact the fighters, just all the visuals outside, but didn't really seem like anyone had any complaints. That is an unbelievable venue, and if anyone has the chance to go see any type of event there, I would definitely encourage them to do so.